Molweni, my name is Uanga Mbeia and I am from South Africa. I stay in the coastline of Gqeberha, and my love for seaweed started when I had the opportunity to study about it in Sweden, Gothenburg University.
I live between Paris and Brittany in France. Brittany is the west coast of France and probably the most complete seaweed ecosystem in the country.
Seaweed is actually part of our daily life in China. My favorite seaweed is kelp. I am a seaweed ambassador for an organization called Safe Seaweed Coalition.
The coalition is a partnership that supports the safe and sustainable scaling up of the global seaweed industry.
I do believe in the absolute need of a program of advocacy based on dialogue and communication towards these various stakeholders and communities.
I'm a graduate student at the University of Victoria in the Spectral Lab, where we map and monitor bull kelp using remote sensing.
What piqued my interest the most was the fact that seaweed grows very fast, and through photosynthesis, it absorbs carbon dioxide at a phenomenal rate. Now, this process, also known as carbon sequestration, could be our answer to global warming and to mitigating the effects of climate change.
And again, we want to move this industry forward.
I really think seaweed has the potential to not just help our ecosystems and biodiversities in the ocean, but also to help the communities along these coastlines. I'm really hoping that seaweed can provide quality, sustainable jobs.
I've discovered a special formula to transform seaweed into a pliable material to create fashion and home decor products.
I like to draw parallels between land-based agricultural systems that I'm familiar with and the seaweed industry that's developing and growing.
So I think it's really important that we have a lot of people talking and thinking about kelp, how to monitor it, how to restore it, and just really recognizing the importance of our kelp forest.
Well, I kind of came up with the saying, whatever the question is, seaweed is the answer, and that's not exaggerating. From food to biofuels to bioplastic to biofiber.
And I eat it, I dry it, and I put it in all my dishes.
I love to tell others about seaweed because it holds so much promise to support our global food systems and sustainability more broadly.
My advice to anyone wanting to know about seaweed is get involved, be a part of it, be a part of this amazing industry.
Because of all this and more, I'm driven to spread the word about the multifaceted treasure trove that seaweed is.
It's a powerhouse that can contribute significantly to many of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
I hope you will learn more of seaweed during Seaweed Days.
And I hope you'll join me in the seaweed revolution.
Hello, I'm Dr. Spencer Serin, CEO and co-founder of Spoits Enterprises, a scientific research consultation company that focuses on the advancement of agri-food companies through targeted R&D strategies. A major emphasis of our company is the identification of methods for sustainable cattle management through diet formulations and system customization. Specifically, I'm working with Cascadia Seaweed Corp to develop their cultivated seaweed into a viable product for the beef sector through complex chemical composition analysis, modeling, and animal trials. This work is scheduled to be completed in April of 2023. And today I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Steve Meller, founder and president of CH4 Global. Steve is a Las Vegas, Silicon Valley-based entrepreneur, investor, innovator, founder, board advisor, with successful careers in the corporate and academic spaces. Since retirement, I guess, he has been involved in developing several global science companies that I imagine he would describe as disruptive. CH4 Global is one of these companies. It's a biological technology company focused on the development of methane-reducing feed supplements. To borrow from their website, their goal is to meaningfully impact climate change at scale today by harnessing the power of Asparagopsis seaweed to reduce methane from cows and making it easy for farmers to adopt. Welcome, Dr. Meller.
Thank you very much, Spencer. I'm incredibly happy to be here and look forward to a robust, good conversation here.
Okay, no pressure. So the main tool in CH4 Global's pursuit is the red seaweed Asparagopsis. We'll just say species for now, which is found in the waters around Australia, but it's also found in other locations globally. Now, in the search for a real solution, which I think your website kind of captures in that quote quite well, CH4 Global is tackling all parts of product development, I believe. And I'd like to focus kind of on 5 that I just thought of in my research here. The first being the cultivation of seaweed in a scalable way, and scale can mean economically viable and environmentally conscious. 2 is the processing of this seaweed and collection and processing in a scalable way. 3 is the formulation of this seaweed into an actual product. 4 is validating this product and modeling the effects of them at scale. And then 5 is bringing this solution to the world, the adoption stage. So you've got 5 things here. What would you say is the greatest challenge of these 5 areas?
Well, it depends in what point in time you'd asked me that. If you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have said all of them, which is really where our focus has been. What produces the active ingredients in there? How do you maximize them in production, and how do you preserve them? So those areas are incredibly important. We have today a pretty good handle on those, such that in the near future, we should be bringing commercial products to market. I think the biggest challenge, frankly, is the quote you used from us, although I'm going to amend it slightly. You know, our primary goal, the reason that we started the company, the premise by which we operate today, is impact on climate change at scale with urgency. And so it's the urgency piece. You know, we've got 8 years left till 2030. Various nations have collectively agreed on goals for the planet around climate change and greenhouse gas reductions. It's a pretty hard road to get there. I would say it's effectively impossible to get there without major impacts on anthropogenic methane. And that really comes from 2 sources: oil and gas leaks on pipelines, natural gas is methane, and cows burping. And cows burping is the single largest source globally. In fact, it's larger than the total greenhouse gas emissions of China. Big problem, big opportunity. So I think today what we would say is, how do you get it to everyone, all those cows, at scale with urgency? And it's the urgency piece, I think, that is the major area that we're now looking to focus on.
So bringing this solution to the world quickly, as the adoption. Quickly and everywhere. And, you know, premise number 2 for us as a company is really around the word partnerships. We know that in order to get to the level of scale to have meaningful gigaton impact on greenhouse gases, it has to be through partnerships. And for us, partnerships means on the front end, the end you're talking about here is major global multinational companies who are already embedded within the value chain somewhere around the world, who have access to those distribution networks, the farms and the farmers. So that's really where a lot of our focus is creating and then enabling those partnerships across the world. Very cool. Well, Asparagopsis seaweeds are special. No other seaweeds have been shown to be nearly as effective at reducing methane. Now, my role as technical advisor at Cascadia, my company handles the measurement, assessment, and quantification of the chemical components in cultivated seaweeds. And we're seeing a lot of very interesting biologically relevant molecules. To list a few, you're seeing the bioaccumulation of minerals from seawater, many of which are vital to animals. There's macronutrients like proteins, and most exciting to me, kind of from a scientific pursuit, complex carbohydrates that make up the majority of the seaweed, which may have potential beneficial prebiotic effects on the microorganisms inside the cattle. Now, without giving away too much of the exciting things you have going on, do you feel like Asparagopsis-based feed supplements or products have the potential to do more than just reduce methane?
We know they do in one particular area, and I'll talk that in a second. And they're likely to for many of the reasons that you talked, Spencer. We know that Asparagopsis has a relatively low protein count, for example, by comparison, certainly to other species. sort of in the 7, 8, perhaps 9% range. It's given to the cattle, beef and dairy, as a supplement. And that supplement is really quite small in volume and amount. So it's in the order of about 0.5% of dry matter intake. So a beef cow that might eat 10 kilos will get 50 grams throughout the course of the day. So I think as a macronutrient source, it's not particularly going to be beneficial. Now, some of those complex carbohydrates that might exist in there might have some functionality in terms of rumen biology. We haven't looked at those yet. They haven't really been. All of the studies that have been run today have certainly found no particular overt adverse effects. The positive effects that have been found, the point that I made earlier, was there's good evidence to date, early, but good evidence that cows will have a feed efficiency benefit, potentially either an increase in productivity, milk or beef, and or a decrease in the amount of feedstock required to get the same sort of benefit. In either case, it's a big financial benefit to a farmer. More out of my cow or less feed to get to the same level of productivity I have now. So that's a big positive benefit. The science on that is emerging. The science is based on very well understood physiology and biochemistry in the gut. And it appears to be playing out in the small number of published studies today.
Well, it's certainly going to help with the adoption piece if it provides, in addition to the environmental incentive, and economic incentive for the farmers. I know that's really important to the farmers I talk to. Now, in our earlier conversation last week, you shared kind of a very clear multi-year plan for the rollout of CH4 Global's line of products. What do the next 3 to 5 years look like?
So I'll give you three, the next three, and I'll include this year. So for us as a company, 2022 is about bringing the first commercial product to market. And that will happen in both Australia and New Zealand in 2022. 2023 is about significantly accelerating the volume and amount of product in both of those markets. Exponentially is the word that we would use. From existing production facilities we have and those that we're actually building out right now. 2024 is about continuing that, of course, but it's about ensuring that we have production capabilities on all 6 habitable continents at that stage. And that's really done through some of the partnership networks we're talking about, identifying partners not only for growing with us, but partners who are identified for the uptake and use of the products in both geographical regions and across the globe. So yeah, it's an aggressive plan, but again, it falls into the with urgency piece for us.
So yeah, that's interesting because I think maybe when you said partnerships initially, I was more focusing on those partnerships at the end of the chain with the final product, but you're also bringing in partners for the primary production of this Asparagopsis.
Lots of smart people out there, lots of really creative people with great capabilities. And again, for us, what I've learned through all of my academic, professional, and now startup career is connecting with the right people who have the complementary sets of capabilities, philosophies around what you're trying to do can be incredibly powerful at accelerating the development of whatever it is. And in this particular case, the commercialization globally of this particular seaweed product.
Well, this actually kind of leads really well into like my sort of wrap up final question. Going through your LinkedIn, it reads like a laundry list where you act like as an advisor or board member or founder for a number of diverse startups, and all of this after retiring from a 19-year career in research and development at Procter & Gamble. Now, this is maybe more self-serving to me as a relatively new researcher in this space. But in your experience, when these new discoveries are made, like this Asparagopsis result, what's the best strategy to expand an academic kind of observation into an innovative solution?
Well, that's a long question potentially. But I think, one of the things that I've learned, I've said it already, but I'll emphasize it here. And it really doesn't matter if you're in an academic environment. I've been that way for a dozen years. A large corporate, Procter & Gamble's a Fortune 50 company for almost 2 decades. And now this year 10 years in a startup world. It doesn't matter. The premise really fits the same. There is, and this is something that large companies have a hard time understanding. There's a lot of smart people out there who can help you build and understand what you're doing. The same thing is true in an academic world. And there's actually a lot of collaborative work that's done across the world in here. Startups tend to do less. They think they have to keep it all to themselves. We've chosen to focus on keeping some things inside that are intellectual property that's of incredibly good value, but partnering with as many facets of what we do. Again, the intended purpose is to accelerate the path to commercialization. And commercialization for us is not lining our pockets with money. Commercialization to us is impact on climate change at scale with urgency. It's true that we and our investors and our partners will generate significant revenue along the path to that, but that does not guide the principles by which we choose to operate and make decisions. And I would say that's true for anyone in any facet. Think about how you can share what you have with someone else, both like-minded, complementary types of capabilities to expand the impact of what you do. In an academic circle, at creating some great new innovative work, think about it beyond the university tech services folks. They're paid to do a specific role. Some do it well, some don't do it so well. I've come across both. But think about how you can reach out perhaps to other companies that may benefit from your solution and do so in a way that opens up. It doesn't mean go tell them everything the next day, but think about how you can introduce the topic to explore their level of interest. And then the university can help you under NDAs get the right amount of knowledge transfer and what could be done. But the whole principle of collaboration, I think, is one of the key facets to creating and learning from, and then utilizing knowledge in the development of things that are good for people, planet, and ultimately profits. So,
well, I think that's a nice place to end it. The kind of call to action, collaboration is key for the global change that's necessary to create an urgent solution. So thank you, Dr. Meller, for your time. And
thank you very much.
I think that wraps it.
CH4 Global is on a mission to save our planet by cultivating and processing Asparagopsis seaweed to reduce harmful methane emissions from ruminant livestock.
As we grow Asparagopsis and supply it globally, it's going to enable us to bring three key benefits. First, to be able to impact climate change at scale. Two is to work with farmers, so that it actually puts money in farmers' pockets. And three, to work with Indigenous nations, First Nations groups around the world to enable benefits to them.
It only takes a small amount of seaweed to have a big effect on the cow. 50 grams a day has the potential to wipe out 90% of the methane production in a cow every day. If we were able to get our seaweed to 10% of the global population of cattle, that's the equivalent of taking 100 million cars off the road tomorrow.
Find out more about this methane-reducing solution at ch4global.com, because there is no Planet B.